Christ is risen. So the next question I kind of want to tackle is mostly I owe this guy an explanation. He asked me, I think, over a year ago. Uh, uh, a man I know on Facebook asked me for my conversion story. And I don't know if it'll be helpful here, but maybe it'll help other people in some way. So I converted to Orthodoxy at age 18. I did not have a Damascus Road experience. I was not weeping in a prison cell or something like that. I didn't fall off a horse and go blind. Um, it was actually kind of a slow process. So, for family background, I'm Ukrainian, Russian on my dad's side, along with some other a smattering of English and French and other stuff. And I'm mostly Irish and Welsh on my mother's side. And I was raised in a largely agnostic household. My father was agnostic. He just wasn't sure what to make of all this spiritual stuff, and his family likewise wasn't that religious, or wasn't religious at all. My mother's family were Protestants of a sort, sort of in the vein of non-church Protestants. My mom and my grandmother were always very firm, though, that they were Christians. Um, so, and my grandmother for a long time was into New Agey stuff, on my mother's side. So, had that floating around a little bit. But mostly, by the time I hit high school, when I started really investigating these things, I don't think I could have called myself an atheist, because I just didn't feel like I could make a conclusive statement like that. But I was a socialist, communist, sympathizing type person, although paradoxically I was also into knights and chivalry and all that kind of stuff. I think it was the notion of noble struggle that I kind of identified with in Marxism, and the more I examined Marxism over the course of high school, the more I found out that they were not very noble, not very dedicated to truth and helping damsels fair and all that kind of thing. So I kind of did a lot of poking around and asking questions, but the biggest things, there are sort of three big things that I think contributed. First of all, I started getting more into the Russian side of my family heritage. I know that's going to be kind of odd for a lot of converts who don't have Orthodox heritage, but I had it, and it was there. And I was very impressed by reading about the baptism of Kiev. I was very impressed by St. Vladimir, who I eventually took as my patron saint. That is the V in JV. Because he had this kind of reasonable approach to it. He had brought people to debate in front of him. He didn't just believe the outcome of the debate because the Christian guy won. He had his emissaries go out and experience life amongst the different religions, and so he came to a very informed decision, and even at the very end he asks his council whether they think his decision is wise. He never trusts himself, which is actually a very biblical kind of a trait. I think it's in Proverbs. It says, "A man who trusts his own counsel is a fool." Don't ask me for chapter and verse. Anyhow, so that was a big thing. The second big thing was that in high school, I met my best friend, Constantine Pappas. You should check out his YouTube channel. He's an entertainer and social media guy. He's really cool. He was the son of the Greek Orthodox priest in my hometown, and he started inviting me to church functions and things, kind of slowly but surely. He played the long game. He never pushed anything on me, but by senior year, I was starting to ask for things, like I asked for a cross, and he gifted me an icon, a copy of the New Testament and Psalms, and the book Way of a Pilgrim. And I started reading some Dostoevsky at the time, so there was a lot of things converging towards the end of high school. The biggest thing, though, that he did, and this is the third thing, was that he invited me to liturgy during the summer while the Hawaii Everon icon was visiting. For those that don't know, back in 2008, I think, this copy of the Iveron icon, and in specific, it was a copy of the Montreal Iveron icon that was held by the righteous brother Jose Munoz before he was murdered and the icon disappeared, which also streamed Myrrh. This in 2008, this copy, this photocopy, it's actually just like a photographic print on a board, laminated onto a board, started streaming Myrrh, and lots of miracles started flowing from it, and it started touring. So it came to my hometown, and I was present for it. I showed up at the beginning of Orthodox because that's the time it said on the website, and well, I got to stand by her for hours for 2 hours, 3 hours, and she just kept gushing. There's like, and at the time, nowadays she has a very beautiful cover of silver and gold and precious stones that people who have had healings have donated to kind of protect her. But back then it was just the laminated print on a piece of wood, and there was all this liquid coming out of it, and I even got to see it taken out of its shadow box, and they were like, trying to get more myrrh onto cotton balls for people because there were so many people packed into the church that day that people were running out of myrrh, and so it was this sweet fragrance. It smelled like roses and filled the whole building. So that kind of will make you question lots of things, and that's what it did for me. I started thinking more about this whole religion thing. I started kind of longing for religious community life, and so as I also had the help in kind of oblique and sometimes direct ways from my speech and debate coach, a fine lady named Kendra McCoy, and also a dear friend of mine who has since passed on, the great but largely unknown, sadly, ragtime and march composer Stephen Goodman. He used to live across the street from me, preparing player pianos, and he was of more of a Baptist persuasion, but he got me to actually pray to Jesus for the first time. Around the same time, I also went to Europe and saw some cathedrals, and had a particular experience in the. I didn't actually. So I was in the Basilica of St. Francis of Assisi. I didn't feel so much anything when I went down to his tomb. I'm not judging or anything, and just telling you what happened. But there was a side chapel dedicated to the Mother of God, and it was just blue stars, or blue ceiling with gold stars, and simple altar and a crucifix. And I just stood there weeping for 20 minutes, and I couldn't figure out why. So things kind of sped up after that. I started talking to Father Jim Pappas, Constantine's dad, and right after I went through a surgery for a cyst in my neck, I apparently came out saying Christ is conqueror in very bad Russian, which I was starting to learn at the time, out of the anesthesia. My mom brought me aside around that time and was like, "Oh, we can go accept Jesus under a tree," and I very much appreciate her for this. She was doing what she knew, and I was like, "Hey, Mom, I think this involves water." So I contacted Father Jim, and because I was about to go away to college, my catechism lasted 2 weeks, and basically I played a job shadow with the priest during those 2 weeks, which I think partly ended up leading to my eventually going to seminary. Anyway, I was baptized when I was 18 at the Monastery of the Life-Giving Spring in Dunlap, California, and it was a very joyous occasion. There's another story about how I met my godparents, which I'd like to tell, but I'm going to keep back for reasons of time. But it's a very joyous occasion, and the abbess of the monastery, when I came out, she asks me, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 18. "Oh, good. You make the right choice before you make all the wrong choices." And boy, was she right. So coming this August, I'll have been Orthodox 11 years. And it's been an adventure in the ordinary extraordinary. So to to Mark, who asked for this question to be answered. There you go. Hope it helps. God bless. Christ is risen.